We're back and thanks for watching. Straight shooting here, kama kawaida. No mincing words, no taking prisoners. I got an interesting question the other day from one of our viewers on YouTube. And the question was, and it's really a testimony to how hopeless and helpless and fatigued Kenyans feel sometimes when they read all these endless stories and see with their own eyes the face and the picture of corruption in this country. I remember, we talked about the former Auditor General, and I remember the corruption symposium, ironically, that President Uhuru had run that time a few years ago, I think 2018 or 2019 at State House. And I remember Kaparo, the former speaker, on Twitter saying, I looked at my president today and I felt sad. Because the president you remember the time of, Jamini mnataka nifanye nini? And that time he's the kingpin of the game. Somebody asked me the other day, Benji, you raise these issues and they're really good issues. And we just feel, could you give us a bit of the solutions? Cartel capture is a reality in the counties, city county of Nairobi, for example. You have these groupings, these amorphous, shadowy groups that wield so much power and money behind the scenes. They can even kill, can poison you and whatnot. How do you deal with cartel capture? Can it actually be done? And I just thought that I must answer that question. There's leadership by something called force of personality. In young countries, this is the only way to establish the right foundation. Because the right people with the right force of personality ensures then that you set the right foundation and put habits and practices in place that then create and dictate a culture. You see, now we've had a culture in this country, a terrible culture of excuses, of passing the buck, of why are you talking about my county and not the other county? I remember at some point during the coalition government, Amos Kimunya, who was a minister then, said, people are saying that I've sold Grand Regency, but also on the other side, on Raila's side, Kajwang is also selling passports, something like that. You see, the right approach in governance, as far as setting a foundation, then ushers in the successor who will mimic the way that you have led in a strong manner. And it only takes a country getting 2-3 presidents right, 2-3-4 CSs consecutively right, to establish a culture in that ministry. The problem is when you have an Obama, then you bring someone like Trump, then they undo the predecessor, etc. And that's the kind of ping-pong game that we've had. And so if you look at John Michuki, for example, the late John Michuki, he fixed a sector that had refused. They had said, sisi hatutakubali kufanya kazi the right way. We will carry people like mangoes. We will carry human beings like potatoes. We will have overloading, standing, etc., etc. And Michuki put his foot down and said, no, you will not. You will put seatbelts. You will have inspection, TLB, etc. And if you don't, you will not be on the road. And I command the police. So, tupimane nguvu. And you know what? Michuki won. When you talk of Michuki, you can talk of George Natembeya, who is now currently the governor of Trans Nzoia. The one he succeeded is a guy whose reputation was, they kept saying that this guy, once he came, he's just been marrying new wives. So Natembeya is now putting a foundation. And you saw him the other day in the media complaining about handling the banditry menace, but he can't reach PS Kibicho. You see people like Kibicho. Kibicho's name is in everything regarding big money, misleadership, just lack of focus, passing the buck, waiting to be used and abused, and to misuse Kenyan taxpayers' money. It's just so terrible. And so, if you look at someone like Natembeya, if you look at someone like the current DP, you might have seen the latest all-media interview that Rigathi Gachagua gave. You can see his force of personality. He is a really tough guy. The only thing that is playing against Rigathi is Kenyans are yet to believe that he has the best intentions, number one. He's a former DO. So does he have the best intentions for this country at heart, number one? Number two, if this guy wasn't a Kikuyu, just saying, and he had that kind of force of personality and the best intentions for this country, I could tell you, as early as 2023, he'd automatically become a president. This guy, force of personality, is the way to destroy and finish and manage cartels. Because you don't blink when you're dealing with cartels. You don't go and play nice, you Sakaja telling stories with dimples here and there. Apana. This is something you're willing to pay for with your life. And by the way, that brings me to an example that is a mixed bag. I hear a lot of views about Sonko as governor. It is not in dispute that Sonko has a soft heart, a big heart. You know, if you have a problem, if you're poor, if you're needy, Sonko will always come through for you. But I also know people who worked under Sonko who actually went to jail. And I have an official who told me, you know, kulikuwa shimo mingi za pesa. Governor alifunga hizo shimo zote. So for Sonko, you know, that kind of kierere, that kind of craziness, there's a way it works because there's a perception that he is also corrupt, but then he actually ensured that certain things got done for the benefit of Mwananchi. And that is kind of the way to deal with a cartel. And I'm just saying it's ironical because some will also accuse him himself of being a cartel. And of course, ultimately he was kicked out by President Uhuru when they had their own personal differences, name calling and what have you. And so I saw an example that merits, mention last week in Mombasa. And we must use these examples because, like I said, Kenyans feel tired. Kenyans just feel, exhausted and hopeless. Politicians come, they campaign, they promise this and this. Ultimately, you don't really see the results. So you wonder, how is this going to be fixed? What do we need to do? Can you imagine at Coast General Hospital in Mombasa, a couple came in, a lady had a baby, and then the next day she was given a different baby. So she had a son, and the next day they presented a girl. To say that they actually stole a child. Now, this sounds crazy, but can you imagine this has been a norm even in Pumwani? And I remember again Sonko rushing to the rescue on this. He even established the SRT, Sonko Rescue Team. A woman, let me repeat this for someone to hear. A woman came into the hospital. And by the way, I had a baby last week. And that was last year, sorry. And that was my firstborn. Wonderful surprise. It's such a beautiful thing. Of course, it's the mother of the child that had the baby. You guys are not slow. Come on. The couple came in, had a baby, and the next day, there was no baby. Then when they asked, they brought a girl. I dare say that the girl they brought was also stolen from another mother. Which kind of country is this? Which kind of county is this? And so I saw the online discussions and people said, what's the solution to this? And I said, this is only the governor personally that can fix this. The governor must deploy all resources, personal and otherwise, to ensure that Coast General Hospital, this stops instantly. I can assure you, if I was a governor in Mombasa, what's his name, Abdul Samad Sharif, your brief is not to follow Raila around and to give, to show your loyalty and all of this. That's not your brief, governor. Your brief is to ensure that the good people of Mombasa, who after all, they've voted ODM for decades and really have realized nothing in return. Because Raila is not present, he has nothing to give them, really, except riddles, kitendawili, tega. You can't allow this kind of thing to happen, Governor. You really need me to tell you that? It's you to go personally and collect intelligence and compromise employees working with those people. And they'll tell you, push them to all the world, they'll tell you, so and so, Isaac ndio anafanya hii kazi, na anafanya hii kazi pamoja na Moses, na wanapeleka hawa watoto Tanzania or whatever. But you cannot continue taking things lightly and wondering why Kenyans are completely in despair, completely, in disillusionment. You go, you queue, you vote for a person, next thing you hear, kura inaibiwa, next thing, hata wale haijaibiwa kama governor, anakuwa ni mtu bure. What kind of a world is that? And you're even a taxpayer. There's gangs running around, whipping people, cutting people with pangas. I mean, how is that acceptable? So you have to have leadership by force of personality. Ultimately enough, another guy who could have really succeeded in that realm is, until he derailed himself, is Fred Matiang'i. I mean, you see what he did with the Ministry of Education before they brought in the late Professor Magoha. You know, that kind of force of personality, if Matiang'i didn't allow himself to be misused, and if he didn't derail from the true north, you know, for good governance, because you serve the constitution, not a man per se, and where you feel the demands are too much and you cannot, withstand, you go and tell the president, Your Excellency, I appreciate the opportunity to serve. I have served. Indeed, now I must tender my resignation. Here it is, because I cannot do this. I cannot work for Azimio. Your Excellency, that is what a good man does. Force of personality. And you influence culture in the ministry because you have a peers working under you. You have then a CAS. You have an advisor. You have all manner of people. Millions of Kenyans are watching. And you have kids growing saying, I'll grow up to be a good CS like Benji Ndolo. That's the way to do it. It's not by despair. It's not by also becoming part of spectators. Governor hata anaangalia news, ala watoto wanaibiwa kwangu, sasa jameni nifanye nini? Come on guys, come on. Yeah, thanks for watching guys. We're straight shooting here with Benji Ndolo. You gotta tell it like it is, huh? Straight shooting. How else do you shoot? You don't shoot crooked. It's gotta be pap on the point. We need strong leadership because Kenyan taxpayers cannot continue to feel like, what do we do now? What can we do? And yet we have to be here in Kenya. We can't. The solution is not go to Uganda or Brussels. Lazima tujenge hapa bana. We'll talk to you tomorrow on a different episode. Cartel capture. Dawa yake, force of personality, strong leadership. Put your foot down. Even William Ruto has that, but I think he's trying, not to come off as a dictator. But needs to put his foot down with very, very, very clear beacons. You can't have your economic advisor running around justifying why electricity prices cannot come down. Electricity prices hurt food. But we'll talk about that when we talk about the economy. Straight shooting, real talk. Sante.